is Power to the Diaspora. My name is Kenidi Rae. Welcome back. Thank you so much. I do so love our talks. First of all, I want to say thank you to everybody who has engaged me in conversation. You guys have thoughts and you have been telling me, and I am thrilled. I had the opportunity to speak to a former Hotep who very quickly was like, nah, 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 don't use the Hotep. They were doing bad things. And to that I said, I only am talking about the We Was King's taunt. They were right about that. And I think that was a pretty big thing to be right about, considering I didn't know at all. I also have received a few, well, how do you plan to deal with the actual state of Africa in 2026? What are you going to say about that? Nothing. Bro, nothing. I am going to not speak on things that I don't understand. Sure, I have some thoughts and opinions, but I think that by the time I get through my thoughts and opinions about Barbados, that'll be enough episodes. We'll be good, And of course, in current events, the Right Honorable Mia Amor Mottley wins another election, 3 in a row, 30-0. Oh my gosh. I feel like these are sports stats, and she's a heavyweight champion. I know this is bad, okay? I know in the grand scheme of things this is bad, but aren't these numbers iconic? Maybe I need to be more serious. But I have been musing a lot about our prime minister recently and fighting bitterly with a dear friend about how the current slash previous administration is not, making the kind of policies that a country needs. And the economists that I am surrounded by do not agree with her decisions. And I keep saying, that's fine, but look how she relates to people. Look how she connects to the people. I've been told all kinds of things like that. I'm putting feelings first and all sorts of stuff. But I don't know, it seems special. It seems needed. I don't think that people imagined that they could be connected to like this. And I'm a big fan. What can I say? Yet another thing that Prime Minister Mottley has under her belt was her vision with the value of connection and understanding with Africa. Of course, she has a much greater task than I, as she has to actually engage today. Whereas I am engaging in stories and it is not the same kind of work. I see it as very important that she had that vision and that because of her, we have a bit more access to the continent, to ideas of connectivity, and to an understanding that we are from somewhere before we were from here. I do hope that our beloved country will get back a normal-ish looking government soon. But for now, I trust that we are in good enough hands. I haven't heard anyone talk about this in a long time, and I hope I am not bringing up old things to piss people off. But do y'all remember when the bones got returned to Africa? Did you know that no bones were taken to Ghana? Yeah, found that out for the first time when I was recording this. Actually, it was soil from the Newton burial ground, and yeah, no bones were moved in the making of this gossip that plagued this country. When I heard about this, I heard that bones were taken, which I thought was fine. I said to myself, I don't think these people were born in Ghana. They were probably born in Barbados, but I still thought it was fine. Come to find out, there were no bones. It was some soil, and this was just a rumor blown out of proportion by Bajans who wanted nothing to do with anything in Africa. Crazy. I hadn't envisioned that anybody could be upset about it. Then my mother told me about one of her friends who thought that it was this horrible thing. And then maybe I eavesdropped on a conversation or two where I overheard people discussing that they thought that the increased weather activity, like hurricanes and tropical storms, were because the bones were returned to Africa, only to find out that there were no bones. And I thought to myself, oh my goodness, I can't believe people have negative opinions about this. I would have thought they'd have no opinions at all, but maybe that was naive of me, to be frank. In my defense, this was a couple years back, wasn't it? But people felt very strongly. And I think it's interesting that on the one hand, people will say, oh, it's not real. Only Christianity is real. And then also they'll kick a big fuss because you move some bones. Sounds like they think is real. I bring that up to connect it to this single phrase I heard in a clip for a documentary called Spirit and Struggle: African Faiths and the Soul of Barbados. The soundbite was, Obeah is anything African that we do not understand. Barbadians have forgotten a lot, but in our bones, we remember the power of the religions and spiritualities of our ancestors. And I think that when people combine that gut feeling of the realness of something with their brainwashing that it doesn't exist or is not powerful, then it's a mess. It's a mess. And you just brood in fear and confusion. Even the concept of ancestor veneration, I think, is a lot for some people, but I want to see if I can give you a different way to think about it in the event that you are one of these people who is not comfortable with the concept. When a baby is inside its mother's wound, the child that baby will grow up and carry, their egg, is also in their mother's wound. You are carried within your ancestors. You were there while they lived their life, and you're made of them. And while you live your life, the rest of your lineage lives inside of you and is also living your life. And I think that's why this makes sense. The concept of the infiniteness of life being carried in us, in this blip, in this incredibly short time that a human life is as compared to the age of Earth itself, I don't think that you would struggle with the idea of believing that your grandmother wants you to be safe, or that some other person in your family protects you from the great beyond. All these are very comfortable concepts, and they also fit comfortably within your Christian structure, right? Your family is taking care of you from heaven. They're looking down on you and guiding you. Like, it's the same thing. That's just your ancestors supporting you. The African religious traditions may give the ancestors a more active role than Christianity does, but don't you think that's good? Don't you want your ancestors active and in the field, protecting you, ensuring that weapons form but they may not prosper? Don't you want that? I really have connected to the concept of ancestors, and some people go even further with their ancestor veneration. They have altars and shrines, and they light candles and stuff like that, which again I think is very easily mirrored in, say, the Catholic flavor of Christianity, where you light candles for people who've passed on. One of my big arguments always is that we believe in a single God, just in different ways. Some religions interpret that single entity through multiple other gods. Some interpret it 3 ways, and I propose that the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit is still 3 gods, so I don't really know why other religions having multiple gods is so crazy to a religion that says it's one God broken down into 3. I think that's the same thing. It's still 3, but I digress. I say that to say, if you find the concept of ancestor veneration strange, I encourage you to think of it more like them protecting you from heaven. Fit it into what works for you, because that's how this works anyway. So let us see if we can't not just label things as Obeah. That's the other thing. I feel as though when we, the direct descendants of people of different faiths than Christianity, when we look at things that our people would have done if they lived their lives undisturbed, and we say that they are evil or demonic, I really think that can't be good for morale. I don't think that's good for you personally, because whether you process it or not, you are kind of judging yourself, right? You're judging people that look like you for doing things that you don't understand, because really bad things happened to the people who you're descended from, and you're a victim of the great forgetting. We really need to see if we cannot be so afraid. And like I said, I think that fear is rooted in your gut feeling that it's real. Your physical acknowledgement, your soul's remembrance of the work. With the election season done, I would say the next big thing that's on our clocks is Carnival, right? So Trinidad Carnival is coming up. And then once Trinidad Carnival is finished and the summer sets in, we'll get into other festivals which are similar. So let's talk festivals. Well, we're going to talk about one festival from one region in Ghana. There's the Nkyidwo festival, which is celebrated by the Esidjamea people in the Bekwai district of the Asante region of Ghana. It's celebrated on the last Monday in November or the first Monday in December, depending on the way the Akan calendar falls that year. We should probably learn about the Akan calendar. I remember looking into that, but I don't remember anything, so we'll have to run that one again. The celebration marks the origin of the first 7 Asante ancestors, who are said to have emerged from a huge hole in the ground in the Asantemanso Forest on a Monday night. It is said that a dog and a lion followed the 7 from the earth. The festival is a time to celebrate culture and heritage, and it's a time to pay homage to the ancestors and pray for a good year ahead. Yes, you see why I had to make sure that you and I were on the same page about the ancestors. Yeah, didn't want to scare you. Another element of the Nkyidwo festival is the kente cloth weaving competition. Weavers from all over Ghana compete to produce the most beautiful kente cloth. The festival begins with a purification ceremony to cleanse the town of evil spirits, led by the chief and elders of the town. And then there is a procession of the chiefs and the people to the sacred grove where the first ancestors emerged from the earth. This is also where the ancestors of the town are believed to reside. Once there, in the Asantemanso Forest, there are prayers and sacrifices offered to the gods of the sacred grove. And the festivities close with drumming and traditional dancing. Now, when I first learned about this festival, I kind of immediately held on to it because I thought it's really lovely. It is a celebration of the beginning of a people. Now, you can have thoughts and opinions about whether they came out of the ground or not, I suppose. But stick with me on this. It's a festival. It's a celebration of the origins of the first 7 Asante ancestors. And it really is about people, right? It's about that group. I immediately liked this because so many of our festivals in the Caribbean are steeped in plantation history. Carnival was adapted from the planter class and the carnivals that they had, and the enslaved people created their own to make fun of them and in resistance and rebellion and to find some joy. And then Crop Over, or Kadooment in Barbados, is to mark the end of the crop season, and it is this one day when the people who were enslaved on the plantation were treated half decently. Then we took that festival and we commercialized it to sell to tourists. And, it really is a major cultural celebration. And I'm not suggesting that we stop having Kadooment, but don't you think it's a little disturbing? And, it really has been something different for so long. And I guess that's the argument that I'm going to make to myself to justify it. But in 2026, to be participating in a festival to mark the end of the crop season because people used to be enslaved on sugar plantations is a little unhinged. Is a little unhinged in truth. But what do you do about that? They would riot if we cancel Crop Over. So I can't help but really be joyful about a festival to honor ancestors who emerged from the ground in a sacred grove. Isn't that lovely? We're going to end with a little bit of Asante architecture. Traditional Asante buildings would be 4 structures, like imagine them in a square with open patios, which would open out onto a courtyard in the middle. And then the walls would be wattle and daub, and they would be built up till they were even and then polished smooth. After which they would have details of Adinkra symbols put in them that have meaning. Like each symbol will mean something else. And so you see how I told you that? You heard me. I imagine you understood the words, but I don't feel that you can see it, right? Like, I don't know if you've quite gotten the vision. And that's the reason I decided to write this book, which I'm realizing is a historical fiction romance. So I'm doing a bit of genre blending. I'm going to find the words, I'm going to learn the terms for what we're building. But I wrote this book because I want you to be able to envision what these walls look like. I want you to be deeply familiar with them, and I want that it conjures an image when you hear the words. But I'm not convinced that what I said would produce the kind of images in the mind that I would like. So I'm going to read a little bit of my untitled, unpublished book that describes the walls in the palace. The walls were wattle and daub, an art in itself if you think about it. The builders summoned the high walls of the palace up from the very ground it sat upon, coaxing clay up to the heavens on the thick woven split bamboo frames. Artisans would mix the clay with water and knead it until it was sticky. The paste would then be pressed into the gaps in the bamboo lattice work. The layers built up until the walls were thick and even, but they did not stop there. The upper sections of the walls would be coated with bright white clay, signifying the purity of the spiritual realm. The coating on the bottom portion of the walls was red clay, earth-toned, and a symbol of the physical realm. While the walls were still wet, low-relief sculpted murals would be molded onto the building. These murals depict symbols of the empire's ideology, continuous repeating curves and spiral designs with no beginning or end told of the wholeness and unity of the empire, rooted in the continuity of the Oyoko lineage. Some of the reliefs resemble birds whose heads are turned backwards, looking towards their wings. This symbol is Sankofa, reminding us to look to the wisdom of the past, the reminder that you can go back and retrieve anything you knew before. The conjoined crocodiles are a favorite of mine. I have a fondness for art depicting animals. This Adinkra symbol tells of the unity which can be found in diversity, and the importance of prioritizing shared destiny over individual greed. Gia Name, another standout symbol, acknowledges the omnipotence of the Supreme God and the importance of maintaining humility in human affairs. When the colors and designs were in place, the walls would be polished to a dull shine, the finished product a sprawling compound fit for the residence of 5 generations of Asante royalty. I have lived here my entire life, and I still have not seen every room in this palace. And with that, let's wrap up. I'd say my main takeaways are, let's try not to be so afraid of things that are African that we do not understand, so much so that we call them Obeah, condemn them, say they're demonic, and all the while in that condemnation, we condemn ourselves. And I know some people are going to say, no, that's not true. That's not what I'm doing. Okay, sure, if you say so. But I feel like the two things cannot be separate. Being a Black person, you can never be truly separate from the connection to Africa. So if we ignore them, it's for a reason, you know? And a reason that's probably not so great for us. And lastly, I think that we need a festival to celebrate our ancestors too. I think it's good and beneficial. And maybe we could celebrate it on Republic Day since we don't do much on that day anyway. Just to be like, yes, we honor the people who came here. We honor the people who first existed so that we could. That just seems like it would be better for morale than a celebration of the one day that enslaved people had a good time because the crops were finished. Yeah. And with that, please remember that our ancestors recorded and passed on our histories by word of mouth. So tell somebody about something you learned today. Thank you so much for listening. This has been Power to the Diaspora.